different methods of drawing, using different drawing materials, okay? So the book that you have, the textbook, Draw It, actually evolved from a class about 9, 10, 11 years ago. I started at the request of students who came up and said, we'd like to be able to draw better. And the sequence I had in that class evolved into the making of the book. So if you look at the book, you follow through it, it's a way of learning different tools, different techniques, and then at the end, how you all begin to put it together. We'll talk a little bit about that, particularly over there during the presentation. But I pinned them up for you to look at closely. And if you want to sniff them out, please do so. Okay. Architects travel as architects. You don't travel as a tourist. You are analytical, and you're wanting to learn how that thing operates. What does it look like? And so you use different drawing methods. Perspective, section, and because it's analytical, but it's also quantifiable. How tall is it? How big is it? What are the building materials? Can you hear me out back there okay? Okay. What are the building materials? So you list the height. This happens to be a walkway between Hunter Auditorium and the chemistry building. It's drawn with a Sharpie black marker and a black roller ball pen. Here, this, you can't see. The Flora Daniel building right across the hall, street here. Great building to go into. The atrium space there is a perspective with students and tables in it, a plan and a section. Now, how do you draw looking up? We'll talk about that in a minute. How do you draw looking down? So that's one of the exercises. It's here shown. This up here is just a building across the street from the engineering building. It's now in color. But again, these are site drawings. I want to understand how that walkway operates. So here's a sketch with it, section. And here's a sketch standing up there looking back down. It's a duality drawing. From here, I draw that, I get over there, from there, I draw back to here. It's a duality drawing, back and forth. Learning about space, trying to draw. This drawing here is a series of drawing tools. Sharpie marker. And you will see many of them have people in them. We'll talk about how important it is to have people in your drawing. Sharpie, Prismacolor. Do you all know what Prismacolor pencils are? Yes? Good. How about oil pastel? Not so many. Great tool. Oil pastel, great. The neat thing about oil pastel is, as compared to pastel, the chalk pastel will end up in your lap. It all comes down. Oil pastel will not. It will just sit there, and then you sit and you can take your finger and smudge it, work it in. And then over here is watercolor with using a Sharpie marker. These are all sequential. Like here's the walkway. This is going up to, what's going up? What's the main building with the clock tower? Tillman. So here's Tillman walkway. Walkway, getting closer. There's the door right there, and there's the door right there. You know what's fascinating about the relationship between Tillman and Riggs is that they are axially related. The door, the south door at Tillman aligns with the north door at Riggs. They're aligned. They're on an axis, A-X-I-S. That's
Your lecture on Friday is going to talk about axes.
All right,
So.
excellent. It's a way of organizing. Okay. Now, anybody over here, can anybody over here recognize where this is? Right. Where is this?
That's looking at the Watts Center and the Cooper Library.
Right. How many of y'all were there during the eclipse for the celebration? A lot of you were. Wasn't that cool? The most phenomenal thing to happen. Everybody was laying out here, and I was at home looking up with my glasses on. So here's the Watts Center. See, it started out as a one-point perspective right here, but I needed to extend it. That's okay, as long as the paper's big enough. So I extended it out. Here's the field, here's the section, and elevations. This is using a Sharpie and a rollerball pen. This is a technique that you should consider doing. It's called a sequential drawing. It started normally out as a thing called a storyboard. A storyboard originated in the cinematography business, putting together a movie. Each of the images were all aligned, all sketched out, all the way through what the image will be for the movie. Everybody uses it now in advertising. What kind of images are going to sell this product? What kind of images are going to tell the story? The question you may ask is, what kind of images are going to tell the story of my project? Well, one is the storyboard method. So these sketches here are using a black Sharpie marker and a limited range of all pastel, right? So here's walking down the street, City Park, Main Street. Here's getting closer, view 2, view 3, and view 4. Storyboard method, sequentially putting things together. Then we have aerial drawings. This is Charleston. This is downtown Greenville from a roof of a building looking down. And this is on the roof of the Floor Daniel building, right across here, looking back at the School of Architecture. We're currently in Lee 3 right there. One thing I do about learning about a place I'm visiting, about a cityscape, is to get an aerial view or an overall view. What's the overall view? Sometimes we call it a concept idea. What's the concept of your drawing, of your idea? What's the big view? So here I have an aerial view of land. This is over England, the shoreline, the North Sea is right here. So here's the aerial view of the landform, the city, train line coming through. This is Chicago, sitting out in Grant Park, looking back. San Francisco, getting an overall view. This drawing here was started about 6 o'clock in the evening, or 7, and went down for a drawing workshop in Charleston. And I just got started. All I could do is draw the cityscape here. That's why I wanted you to come up and take a look at these drawings, because from back where you're sitting, you won't be able to see this too well. So I got the cityscape, and I was doing it. This cargo ship came by. And it was obliterating my drawing. How dare it? So it cruised on. And then I finished it after dinner in the hotel room. Why not? So I finished the drawing doing this. So you can do your drawings on site. You don't, if you run out of time, just think about, well, when can I fit it in later? And you can complete the drawing. Drawing of Charleston. So we're getting closer, closer, closer. Here are views of cities, pathways between buildings, right? The narrow pathways. There are certain rules of doing perspectives. Well, this one really breaks it totally. Because they said, wait a minute, that's kind of weird looking, it's bent. It's bent. I call it a warped perspective. This was done this past July in London, South Kensington, down there during a tour. I was sitting there across the street, and I knew I could draw that part right there in elevation. But I also wanted to draw that part and that part. I said, well, how am I going to do that? How am I going to, well, I am going to just draw it as I see it. So as you know, when you stand and you start drawing to the right, things are going to disappear this direction, disappear that way. So it's a warped perspective. I got the city bus in there. Here's the streetscape. Streetscape, all the miscellaneous claptrap that's on the sidewalk with signs and trees and banners and bollards and all that kind of stuff that makes the environment so rich. And then sometimes you only have seconds to draw, like right here. This is just a real quick sketch using, again, Sharpie marker. There's the people, there's the pathway through, this portal, just like, hey, look over that direction for a moment. I bet you could draw that in about 10 seconds without getting all the detail, but I bet you could get it as an opening and there's sunlight and there's something green down there. That's basically what this one here is. Just a quick one. Night drawing. One of the things I like to do, and you're probably like this too, I'm sure. You're curious. I think architects, design professionals are just unbelievably curious. You want to know how, why, where, how much, all that kind of thing. You're curious. Well, I'm very curious about how other artists draw. And I try to study them to learn about what they call color theory or color composition or whatever. So when I'm traveling, I'll go into a museum or a gallery and I'll sit down right in front of it. There's one, a very famous painting by an American painter named Edward Hopper, Nighthawks. And here's a view of a cafe. And so I sat there and I drew it nighttime, okay? So when you are going to do a design project and you say, gee, I wonder what it looks like at night. I know it looks like at daytime. What about night? Or when it's snowing or raining? What nighttime? Well, you do this, okay, I remember that a little bit. So when you later, you're doing a drawing like this, you come out of the Art Institute in Chicago and you draw a night view and you begin to see, there's that yellow. Because yellow is maybe the street shops, right? So you have Nighthawk, and then here is a contemporary painting. Sometimes you use a roller ball pen. I use roller ball pen. This is the Sharpie. These were workshop drawings a couple years ago down in Atlanta, at the AIA convention, using Sharpie. Okay, I've talked about 45 minutes. I want to stop for a moment and catch my breath, and then we'll go over and use the projection over here. Yes, sir, in the back.